Heya! Welcome back. Today I thought I'd do just a casual video where I just sit down and talk to you about my favourite books. Well, my favourite costuming books specifically. I don't know how interested y'all would be in my Dinotopia recommendations. That's what I'm planning to do today. I'll do a little tour of my teeny tiny library and I'll show you all my favourite books and why I think they're really good, what it's good for, because obviously not every book is good for everything. So yeah, let's do it. Right, I'll start with every costumier's favourite book, well, at least that I know of. Patterns of Fashion by Janet Arnold. These are truly the holy grail of costuming. I've got almost all of them except one that I've not been able to find yet. But basically, Janet Arnold has, in her books, catalogued different extants all the way from 1560 up to 1940. So it's a huge span. What she's done is basically take drawings of the extants and then made patterns based on the extants that exist. The patterns are put up on a grid, so it's really easy to scale up. However, this isn't commercial patterns, so you're not going to be able to, you're going to have to grade them yourself to make them your size. However, it's a really, really good resource in what the pattern pieces look like, what they were made of. There's all kinds of like very, very interesting notes. And that's for all of these. And then the latest one is Patterns of Fashion 5. I think they're actually republishing the other ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think the School of Historical Dress, the same ones that published number 5, are republishing the first ones with updated content and more of her notes. But Patterns of Fashion 5 is really good in the way that it shows you all the undergarments, all the understructures. There's plenty of information about fabrics and even how to draft your own stays. It is really good. One of my favorite books. It's so helpful when figuring out how things work, what they look like. I actually used this book for the stays that I made in my last video, and it was just incredibly helpful because I'd never made proper stays before. I'd made like migraine pair that were, we don't speak about them anymore. But basically this like has all the information you need to know how it was made. You know, like the pieces, what they were made of, the shape, everything. These are not very beginner friendly always because of, you can't just, pick a size and copy the pattern as you would with, for example, a commercial pattern like Simplicity and whichever. You do have to know how to scale up patterns. So it's like a little bit higher barrier to entry with these books. However, I do recommend learning how to scale up patterns. It is incredibly useful and it isn't as hard as it seems. If you get dots and cross paper, you're set. The second book I want to recommend is How to Read a Suit by Lilja Edwards. It is a really, really good book in menswear and learning how to see and to estimate when a suit is from, what time period. It's very conveniently split into different ages. So like it starts up out here in the 17th century, then it moves on to the 18th century, 19th century, 20th century. Does it go up to the 21st century? No, stops at 20th century. But anyways, I really recommend this book because it's really, really beginner friendly. It gives you all the information that you need on how to read a suit. It has little like informations that points to you which points are important to look at. So for example, like how how earlier they don't have colors, how the shape changes, which bits to pay attention to. I really recommend this one, and I'm actually wanting to buy, she's got another one that's called How to Read a Dress, and I'm really excited to get that one and see if that one's just as nice, because I think it's really, really good for an overview. Like if I just, you know, I want to research the 18th century, and I'm like, okay, let's have a look at what specifically the 1760s look like. Okay, they have that, they have that. That's what I'm gonna go for. It's very, very easy overview. It's also got these cute like silhouette to show you which chapter you're at. So like here's the 17th century, and then it highlights the 18th century, which is the chapter that you're on. But then you can also see the other silhouettes and the progression. It's really nice, it's kind of cute. Great graphic design. Front page is also pretty nice. Hired a great graphic designer there. So next up on my favorite books is The American Duchess's Guide to 18th Century. I've got the 18th century dressmaking one and the 18th century beauty. The first one is written by Lauren Stowell and Abby Cox, and the second one is by Lauren Stowell and Abby Cox as well, with Shani McKnight, and these are invaluable for costumers. They're really good in how to construct the costume. So let's see, you've researched what the dress looks like, you know what you want, you have no idea how to make it, and you don't want to use a commercial pattern, you want to use the techniques of how they were done. So basically the American Duchess guide takes you through how to do different stitches, how to put things together, basically how to make up your garment. Just seeing how everything is put together visually is really helpful when constructing costumes, because if you just look at it, what it looks like, and just have the pattern pieces, you might still have no idea how it goes together. So that's what I really recommend this book for, is to figure out how to do the techniques. And they've got lots of really lovely little information about each of the gowns, but all of the techniques can be applied to all types of different gowns from this century. It doesn't need to be specifically the ones in the book. And then the 18th century beauty one is, I've used this one for all my hair needs specifically. I've not tried out the makeup recipes yet, mostly because I have absolutely no idea what half of it is. And since I'm in the UK, a lot of it is like, how am I gonna access it? However, I think the hairstyling is the absolute most valuable part of this book. So I was actually struggling to figure out 18th century hair for a while. I also had a pixie cut for many years. I would recommend having like hair down to your ears at least for many of these, because it's just really difficult if you have like shaved sides to see. Well, you can't really do any pin curls in your shaved sides. I now have like slightly longer hair, so it's easier to do them. Like you can see my before learning how to do 18th century hair, just kind of trying on my own. And here's, you know, my after ones where I actually have an idea what the I'm doing. I would say that these are quite beginner friendly, but you do, however, need to know how to scale up a pattern and how to fit a mock-up or a toile. So they're a really, really good thing to just have when you're starting out, specifically when you've learnt how to scale up, and the next step is, how do I make this up? So this is my copy of Needlework and Cutting Out by Agnes Walker, and This book I heavily relied on when I was doing my Victorian combinations, and it is a Victorian book. This book is about 110 years old. It's a reprint of a book that originally came out in 1896-7, I don't remember quite. But basically, this book is made for school teachers to use as teaching material for teaching kids sewing. So, you know, since I am a kid, since it is for Victorians, it's for Victorian school teachers to teach Victorian school children, it is quite basic. However, a lot of it is based on things that were common knowledge then. Like, it doesn't explain everything. Even though it's got like step-by-step instructions on how to teach the kids, it is more focused on how to teach it than how to learn it, if you get me. I wouldn't say it's very beginner friendly because the language it uses is quite archaic, is quite old, and a lot of it isn't explained any further. It's just, here you do this, here you do word, and you're like, what's that mean? No idea. It does, however, explain more than a lot of other Victorian and historical sources because it is a book for teaching. So that's good at least, because a lot of this is things that were common knowledge back in the Victorian times, but because of industrialization and just really the way that the world has changed, a lot of this is stuff that we don't really get taught anymore. Maybe you had like 1 or 2 sewing lessons in primary school. But I think it is really valuable knowledge to remember, to learn. Yeah, it also teaches you knitting, which I need to learn because I am not a very good knitter. For some reason, my mum's an absolute magician at knitting. Like, she'll just like, oh, I want to make that. I think like 4 times I've started a sock and never finished it. I think I've made like 2 scarves in my life, and then each time I had to ask my mum how to finish it off. So, you know, maybe I'll learn how to knit now. If you'd like to see me trying to knit something, leave a comment below. So, the next book I want to show you guys is Household Sewing with Home Dressmaking by Berta Banner. This one is also one of the books that a lot of costumers recommend, me included. This is a reprint, a reproduction of an original home dressmaking book from 1898, and it is similar to the Needlework and Cutting Out. This one's more of a teaching book, like teaching you rather than Needlework and Cutting Out, which is you teaching others. This one is for teaching you how to do things. I think is probably aimed at young people who didn't have a good sewing education. But yeah, I definitely recommend that one. Good primary source. The next book I want to recommend is Authentic Victorian Dressmaking Techniques, edited by Christina Harris. It is a reproduction of an original book from, I think it's 1905, yeah, which was published by the Butterick Publishing Company. Yes, the one who makes patterns. This one has lots of diagrams on stitches, gathering, you know, classic, the things that the other ones had as well. However, this one tells you a lot about how to alter and fit, how to shape your garments, how to pattern match. It is really, really helpful for the kind of, when you are making something and you're like, I have no idea why this doesn't fit. This one is incredibly helpful for sizing up patterns, lengthening skirts, you know, changing the waist shape, but also how to put in darts and gatherings, and basically how to construct the garments when you've kind of got the shape down. This is going to be absolutely invaluable when I finally start making my 1896 project that I'm working on. The corset is next, which I'm kind of struggling a little bit with, but it's fine. But I'm really looking forward to doing the skirt and the jacket and being able to use this book, because I've already learnt so much reading it that I'm just so excited to use all the information that it has. So the next one I want to recommend is the Keystone Jacket and Dress Cutter, a treatise on jackets, dresses and other garments for women by Charles from old catalogue Hecklinger. I don't know why they decided to put that in the middle of the name. But yeah, so this one is different than the other Victorian sewing books that I really like, because it teaches you how to draft your own patterns. And I'm so excited to use this as well for my, when I get to my shirt waist and my skirt and my jacket. It basically teaches you how to do a pattern from your own measurements. This one is definitely not beginner friendly. I would definitely have done some sewing and done some drafting and kind of like maths. Don't have to like maths, but kind of be able to do a little bit of maths before you delve into this one, because sometimes it doesn't actually explain a lot of it. But basically, you create a basic shape, a basic form, and then for different things, you use that basic form and it'll tell you how to alter that basic form to create waistcoats, jackets, different sleeves. It is really, really cool and I'm so excited to use it. And it is really lovely because it helps you to alter to different body shapes and it will fit perfectly. It also has like added things for like if you're extra tall, if you're stout, if you're erect, if you're stooping. But it basically has easy alteration to the pattern itself and you can reuse it and just make all kinds of incredibly cool things. And I think this is one of my absolute favorite books. I'm so glad I got it. So I'm very, very excited to actually use this in practice, not just reading it and being like, ho, 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 but actually getting some proper practical use out of it. Right, so the last one on my list of favorite historical costuming books is a little different than the other ones. This one is Medieval Garments Reconstructed, Norse Clothing Patterns, and it is by Lilly Fransen, Anna Nørgaard, and Else Østergaard. It's real difficult to say "and" in the middle of lots of Scandinavian names.
Code switching.
Yeah, code switching. Really difficult when there's an English word in the middle there. And basically, this book is absolutely amazing for doing medieval and Viking Age clothing. It's similar to the Janet Arnold books in that they take direct copies of the patterns of the garments found in Herjolfsnes in Greenland, and it is so cool and it's got lots of different shapes, and basically they've put together a picture of the original extant, a picture of the copy that they have made of it, and in the beginning they have lots of information about like what was found, where they were found, the age, kind of accessories and stuff. And they've got an entire chapter that talks about how to produce a handmade reconstruction. And it discusses everything from like making the yarn, like spinning the yarn, weaving the fabric, dyeing the fabric. It is really, really in-depth. And it also discusses when doing a reproduction. Are you gonna spin your own yarn? Are you gonna spin your own yarn from the specific sheep that it would have been used? Are you going to use only tools that would have been used? Which is really, really interesting. And this one allows you to do all of that if you want to, but also like, don't feel guilty about not spinning your own yarn to weave the fabric to sew the thing. Don't feel guilty about not raising your own sheep. So I used to do a Viking reenactment at home in Norway. Like, as a reenactor, it gives a really good insight into not only what the clothes looked like, but how they were made and how time-consuming and valuable it was to make clothes. And I think that's just invaluable information to have, especially since these garments are like over 1,000 years old. It is really cool that we know what they look like, you know?
You should mention how you wanted to be an archaeologist.
Paleontologist, actually. Throwback to Dinotopia. So I think that is all of the books for now. There's quite a lot of books recommended. Don't buy them all at once. I hope you enjoyed my little library tour of my huge library. It's a nice cabinet though, right? But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and if you have any books to recommend me, please leave them in the comments below because I'm always interested in more books. I buy too many books, but also I don't. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you sometime soon.